Thank you, Satish Uncle. Namaste. A very good evening to all. We Vivians at Vignan Vikas welcome you all to the Gita Intelligence Star Insight Show. Insight is the capacity to gain a deeper understanding of something or someone. Yes, we Vivians have been doing exactly that for many years under the guidance of Satish Uncle. Last year, Uncle led us through the chapter 15 of the Bhagavad-Gita, the Purushottama Yoga. And the year before that, we covered chapter 14, Gunatraya Vibhaga Yoga. It has been a journey of eye-openers, aha moments and reflections. We have tried to thread a golden braid of whatever we have understood throughout these years, and we are presenting it to you through stories, presentations and real-time life experiences. Welcome once again to our show. Let us begin with the Dhyana slokas recited by our very cute sub-juniors.
सर्वोपनिषदो गावो दोग्धा गोपालनन्दन पार्थो वत्ससुतेर्भोक्ता दुग्धं गीतामृतं महत् वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुम् भीष्मद्रोणतटा जयत्रदला गान्धारनीनोत्पला शल्यग्राहवती कृपेण वह्नि कर्मेण वेलाकुला अश्वत्थामविकर्णकोरमकरा दुर्योधनावर्तिनी सोत्तीर्णा कलिपाण्डवेगणनदी कैवर्तककेशवा पाराशर्यवच सरोज ममलं गीतातद्यन्तोत्कडम् नानाज्ञानककेसरं हरिकदा सम्बोधनाबोधितम् लोके सज्जनशतपदैरहरः पेपीयमानं मुदा भूयात् भारतपङ्कजं कलिमल प्रध्वंसिन श्रेयसी मूगं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे परमानन्दमाधवम् यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्ररुद्रमरुता स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदे साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदे गायन्नियं सामगा ध्यानावस्थिततत्कदेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनो यस्यान्तं न विदुःसुरासुरगणा देवाय तस्मै नमः देवाय तस्मै नमः देवाय तस्मै नमः सर्वधर्मान् परित्यज्य मामेकं शरणं व्रज अहं त्वा सर्वपापेभ्यो मोक्षयिष्यामि मा शुचाम् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः
Brahman, the infinite, is rooted in sacrifice, in control of inherent physical nature, of harmony, motion, and inertia. The universe evolves. The earth is a part of that universe. Man is a minute component within that world. We all need the mind of man to be powered by the thoughts of sustainability, expansion, and enrichment. Let us listen to and watch our team of Vivians take us through the path of sacrifices and our attitude that should be molded on.
That's here. That's home. That's us. On it, everyone you love, everyone you know, everyone you ever heard of, every human being who ever was, lived out their lives. The aggregate of our joy and suffering. Thousands of confident religions, ideologies, and economic doctrines. Every hunter and forager, every hero and coward, every creator and civilization, every king and peasant, every young couple in love, every mother and father, hopeful child, inventor and explorer, every teacher of morals, every corrupt politician, every superstar, every supreme leader, every saint and sinner in history of our species lived there, on a mote of dust suspended in a sunbeam.
This is a quote from Carl Sagan. Part of being human is our capacity to transform the natural world around us. Although we rightly rejoice in our repository of knowledge, we cannot deny that we are becoming increasingly aware of the damage that we are causing to our planet. Our selfishness has blinded us from discriminating between efficient usage and exploitation of the Earth's precious resources. If this goes on, key systems of the planet would find it nearly impossible to carry this burden. Biological systems would collapse and life would cease to exist.
Vigyan Vikas thus presents The Future is Now, a concise, no-nonsense documentary about what fate holds in store for us. Are we to continue on our current path of destruction, and what we can do to atone for everything that we have done to our planet so far.
मयि सर्वाणि कर्माणि सन्न्यस्याध्यात्मचेतसा निराशीर्निर्ममो भूत्वा युध्यस्व विगतज्वरः.
The universe began with a phenomenon called the Big Bang. Starting from extremely high densities and high temperatures, space expanded, the universe cooled, and the simplest elements formed. Gravity gradually drew matter together to form the first stars and the first galaxies. Galaxies collected into groups, clusters, and superclusters. When the solar system settled into its current layout about 4.5 billion years ago, gravity pulled swirling gas and dust in to form the third planet from the Sun. And for a long time, the only one that showed any promise of life, the Earth. Then came the sprouting of the initial forms of life. Around several million years ago, the original primate line split into two separate groups, each of which evolved to become different species. Now, one of these groups evolved distinctively. They became terrestrial and became capable of walking on two legs instead of four. Moreover, the size of their brain increased. This is the group that through evolution gave rise to the modern current humans, that is, us.
But what makes us humans so special? Our brain's cerebral cortex is disproportionately large and is capable of higher cognition, both of which are features that cannot be seen in other animals. Humans thus prove to be quick and adapt, willful and determined, skillful and focused. We began evolving, we began exploring new territory, we began settling and collaborating to create, and most importantly, we began establishing predominance over everything else. But as we have seen through various instances across history, a chattel of too much power can intoxicate you with the desire for more, and at this point, far more than what the planet can offer. But what did mankind do? Where did they go wrong? Let us find out.
Let us go all the way back to the 18th century. Many believe that the Industrial Revolution of the mid-1700s led to the initial depletion of mineral resources. This period saw the development of technology that enabled more efficient mining and increased living facilities for the people. Economies boomed, countries developed, and people were happy. Slowly and sadly, however, from then on, it has been nothing but a losing battle for sustenance against human avarice. Be it the extraction and burning of fossil fuels, excessive mining of minerals, improper treatment of toxic byproducts in manufacturing industries, all deplete or degrade the Earth's natural resources. To put it across simply, we humans have been consuming more than what we are producing. This is the product of an increasing global population multiplied by an ever-increasing level of consumption per person. It is estimated that the humanity's ecological footprint, a measure of consumption, selfish consumption, I would say, is 1.5 times the Earth's capacity to sustainably provide the resources to satisfy that demand. And it so happens that, in order to do so, we are depleting our natural capital, that is, everything that we find in our biosphere: water resources, land, soil, and so on.
Imagine a scenario wherein we continue to do everything that we're doing now. What will become of our world by 2050?
We are living in a world that will be more than 3 degrees warmer than it is now. The first sign of the chaos that you experience is the pungent air. Your eyes can't stop watering. You can't stop coughing. You can no longer stroll outside of your home, bask in the sunshine and breathe the fresh air because there isn't any.
Most countries have banned extracting and burning fossil fuels more than 5 years ago, but there are nations that still aren't doing much.
However, that shouldn't stop us. We must strive to make a difference and inspire others to bring about a substantial change before it's too late.
The world's ecosystems have stopped absorbing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and are unsurprisingly emitting it. The pH of water bodies is so low that they become acidic, due to which marine life cease to exist, thus shattering innumerable food webs. The news is always going on about droughts and heat waves occurring in Southeast and Central Asia. These areas are bone dry and thus stopped sustaining human life a long time ago. There are fiery conflicts between nations regarding water and food pollution, the latter of which swings widely and is close to unpredictable due to the ever-shifting climate zones. As a result, famines are prevalent, which in turn results in horrifying illness and lack of nutrition. The infant mortality rate continues to spike, and countries periodically suffer from epidemics. It is appalling to see the gradual rupturing of ecosystems. In one part of the world, we see the lack of water resource, while in another, we see the constant melting of glaciers due to the rising temperature, which results in floods.
But that's not all. Climate change is melting permafrost soils that have been frozen for thousands of years. And as the soils melt, they are releasing ancient viruses and bacteria that, having lain dormant, are springing back to life. This dreadful and chaotic world is what we humans are heading towards, whilst dragging every other entity on this planet with us.
Impending atrocities aside, these problems aren't the endgame. There are millions of possibilities to redeem ourselves, to do justice to our planet. An umbrella term for such strategies, fueled by the desire to preserve our world, is termed sustainability. A concept so simple to understand, yet so intricate when it comes to its implementation. Now, there are different phases to sustainability. The most important one, however, is sustaining our ecological diversity and our environment, that is, the biotic components of our planet. As we all are well aware, this includes
preserving flora and fauna, raising awareness against the excessive poaching of animals, protecting biodiversity, and even reducing meat consumption.
The second phase is sustaining our natural resources. The indiscriminate exploitation of resources by a few factions of society, leading to substantial depletion of resources required for our survival, has become a massive problem. And the only way to solve this? Change our archaic mindset and take action. We often think that our actions don't contribute to the bigger picture. This is a perspective that has brought nothing but ruin to everything.
Even the tiniest deeds, from letting your tap run while you're brushing your teeth, to using that extra gallon of water to take a nice long shower, are acts of depletion of the earth's precious resources, which again are privileges, not rights. On the bright side, if our actions have painted such a dark picture, they can definitely work for the greater good. So, close that tap. Don't have such a long shower. Plant those trees, save those endangered species, and make a conscious effort to preserve our resources, something that the coming generations will need.
Long story short, ecosystems aren't meant to be tampered with. The environment isn't supposed to be destroyed, and our planet must not endure such suffering. In fact, no plant, no animal, and no human ever should.
The Bhagavad-Gita, being the ultimate guide to living a just, noble, and fruitful life, teaches us everything that we have talked about till now. Lord Krishna eloquently explains this through the third chapter of Bhagavad-Gita. The third chapter of the Bhagavad-Gita explains the yajna and the tyaga bhavas, signifying the path of sacrifice, in building a sustainable, expansive, and an enriching world.
Continuing with what Carl Sagan said, it has been said that astronomy is a humbling and character-building experience. There is perhaps no better demonstration of the folly of human conceits than this distant image of our tiny world. It underscores our responsibility to deal more kindly with one another and to preserve and cherish the pale blue dot, the only home we've ever known.
The path of sacrifice needs to be powered by knowledge and adapted to the changing needs of societies and nations. The strategic wisdom and the process and techniques that the Bhagavad-Gita unfolds through the eternal knowledge contained therein is the intelligence needed for mankind. This is Gita intelligence in action. Intelligence is rooted in the capacity to learn, reflect, connect, adapt, and apply knowledge. The wisdom of Upanishads have been passed on to us through generations. Had it been terse mantras alone, it would have been difficult for the whole generation to carry it forward. So, we have had a plethora of scriptures to suit the thought capacities of different people. The power of cognition is enhanced through the use of metaphors, similes, and analogies. The Bhagavata Purana is a tremendous source of visualization of deep knowledge of the Upanishads through stories that remain etched in memory. These stories are powerful analogues that depict the wisdom of Bhagavad-Gita, which is the essence of the Upanishad wisdom. We now lead you through a series of stories and the inner significances that will help you connect with Bhagavad Gita wisdom. First, We have the story of Dhruva, of firm faith and focus, followed by the interesting story of Rukmini, the determined. Faith and focus of mind, followed by determination to achieve a goal, is a sure recipe for success in the thought powered 21st century. So, it is all about the three F's: focus, faith, and fortitude.
Namaste. Our group Chamayam Katha Sangam will be presenting a skit on the inspiring story of Dhruva. This skit will take us through the story of how Dhruva, despite being only 5 years old, was able to identify with the self by controlling his body, mind, and intellect. This story is a prime example of how one's potentials are infinite when powered by the joys of the self. Chamayam, meaning properties that were used in this play, were made and brought together by the efforts of our team members from materials available in their own homes. The members of the Chamayam team are Madhav Verma, Niranjan Verma, Srihari Menon, Dhanush Sanu, Dhyan Sanu, Sanjana and Siddharth, and myself, Rukmini Kalipuri. Without further ado, we present to you Dhruva Charitam.
King Uttanapada was the first son of Manu. He had two wives, Surichi and Suniti. Surici's son was called Uttama and Suniti's son was called Dhruva. Surichi was very possessive. She wouldn't let Uttanapada see Suniti or her son. One day, Surichi was sitting, laughing and chatting with the king.
Come, children.
Mother, could I sit on my father's lap and play with him?
Yes, son, you may go.
I too want to sit on father's lap.
Of course not. Dhruva, I do not doubt that you are the king's eldest son, but to be in his favor is a different thing. For that, you will have to take birth in my womb. Therefore, go do penance so that in your next life you may be born as my son.
Dhruva was extremely hurt by the words of Surichi. He ran to his mother, sobbing uncontrollably. She soothed him with soft, loving words and gentle whispers. When he had become fairly calm, she said to him,
Do not grieve so, my son, at the words of your stepmother. Think of the one great truth she told you. Through penance, prayer, and the grace of Narayana, everything is possible.
Who is this Narayana, mother? Where can I find him?
My son, he is called the Lotus-Eyed One. He removes miseries and fulfills the desires of those who renounce all and take refuge in him. But he is not easily attainable. After years of strict austerity and penance, yogis have realized him through intense devotion, seated deep within their hearts.
Later that night, when everyone was fast asleep, he quietly stole out of the palace and made his way towards the deep, dark jungles. He walked for days and nights without food, water, or rest, crying out passionately,
Narayana! Vasudeva! Where are you? Vasudeva! Where are you? Narayana!
Narada heard the sincere cries of Dhruva for the vision of the Lord. He set out to meet the boy. He blessed him and tried to test his earnestness.
Narayana, Narayana. My son, you are still too young to begin your search for God. Go back to where you belong. These are your days to enjoy. Go and lead a worthy life. In your old age, when your duties are over, you can meditate upon the Lord.
Oh dear sage, my burning desire is to realize God. That is my highest goal in life. Pray, show me the path.
Narada was convinced that Dhruva was indeed a sincere seeker. He taught him a japa and showed him how a mind free from restlessness becomes available for meditation. He taught him how to meditate and gave him the sacred Dwadasakshara mantra Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya and asked him to meditate upon it constantly.
Make your heart pure and free from all agitations. Feel His loving presence in your heart at all times. Devote yourself entirely to His worship, and even in this life, you shall realize Him.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
During his first few days, his spirit was restless, but soon he found boundless joy in meditation. He subjected himself to rigorous tapas. He undertook terrible fasts by eating dried leaves and grass, sipping water once in 9 days and breathing only once in a while. He went into long spells of samadhi. By the 5th month, he had lost all consciousness of the outer world and had entered deeper into meditation. He stopped all movements of the body and stood poised on the big toe of one foot. The Lord, now thirsty for the darshan of his bhakta, mounted Garuda and gracefully landed in front of him. Slowly, Dhruva opened his eyes and was dazzled by the presence of the Divine Lord. The Lord, full of love and happiness, smiled and touched Dhruva with his divine conch. Dhruva's heart was flooded with love and joy.
Child, I know your heart. I grant you your boon. But now you'll have to go back to your father and rule the kingdom till your allotted time upon the earth is over. Then you shall ascend to the celestial sphere where the Devas, Gandharvas and Apsaras constantly chant my glories. Here you shall have a permanent and changing place and shall be called the Dhruva Nakshatra. In later years, men will draw their guidance from you.
With these blessings, the Lord disappeared. Obeying his command, Dhruva set out on his journey. His father, mothers and brother all came out in splendid chariots and carriages to welcome him. He prostrated before his father and bowed low before his mother.
God bless you, my son. Come with me, Dhruva.
Suruchi begged for his forgiveness. There was great rejoicing throughout the country. Dhruva Dhruva soon succeeded his father as the king. He ruled as a wise and noble ruler for many prosperous years. When the time approached to give up his body, he saw a brilliant vision, a shining chariot and two of Lord Vishnu's attendants who conducted him to the celestial sphere of Vishnu Loka to become the pole star. It has guided mankind in every single age, and to this day the Hindus call it the Dhruva Nakshatra.
Namaste. We hope you have enjoyed the story of Dhruva. These stories are not only fun to watch, but they also hold immense wisdom and knowledge. So, without further ado, let's find out about the analogies in the story of Dhruva.
Let us talk about the characters involved. Uttanapada literally means to put your foot in both boats. This character highlights people who are shallow-minded and prevaricate between the paths of pleasure and good.
Uttanapada's two wives, Suruchi and Suniti, represent the paths of pleasure and good, respectively. Suruchi means pleasant taste and represents the path of pleasure and selfish interests. Suniti means righteousness and represents the path of good and morality.
Uttama, the son of Suruchi, signifies the more favored or flippant character, while Dhruva, the son of Suniti, signifies the determined and steady character.
Suruchi drives away Dhruva. Determination is often driven away by the taste for pleasures. Suniti advises Dhruva to seek the help of Lord Vishnu. The path of good gives direction to set higher goals and seek the joys of the self.
Narada dissuades Dhruva, but Dhruva stays firm and determined. A determined mind refuses to be lured by immediate gains and stays focused on achieving the higher goal. Dhruva endured a lot of hardship, but stayed resolute and firm. With such intensity of supreme motivations, all obstacles to progress are conquered. Even the whims and fancies of the pleasures of the BMI are put aside. You will start to take pleasure in hard work.
Lord Vishnu appeared before him and blessed him. The happiness of distracting pleasures are very, very small when compared to the bliss of the joys of the self. This realization comes at the first touch of self within you. The happiness of distracting pleasures is temporary. The bliss of the joys of the self is everlasting.
When we work with determination and focus on the goal with one-pointedness of the mind, we revel in the joys of the self.
Namaste to everyone. Today our team Chitrakada Sangam will be presenting the story of Rukmini Haranam. We will be presenting the story through pictures that are drawn by us. Our team members include Abhijay, Aditya, Sejal, Shivaganga, and me, Abhinav. We hope that you enjoy this story, portrayed through the colorful drawings that our team has put up.
Long, long ago, in Dwapara Yuga, Vidarbha was a prosperous and virtuous kingdom under King Bhishmaka. He had 5 sons, Rukmi, Rukmarada, Rukmabahu, Rukmakesha and Rukmamali. The 5 brothers had only one sister, Rukmini. Rukmini grew up to be a beautiful and graceful princess. The princes of all the kingdoms admired her elegance and vied for her hand in marriage. But Rukmini had set her heart on marrying Krishna. Krishna was the incarnation of Lord Vishnu, and Rukmini was the incarnation of his divine consort, Lakshmi. King Bhishmaka realized that the time had come for Princess Rukmini's marriage. He and all other members of the royal family held Krishna in high esteem and wanted Rukmini to marry Krishna. But Rukmini detested Krishna. He decided to give his lovely sister in marriage to Shishupala, the prince of Chedi.
My sister Rukmini has grown up. Everybody in the palace, including my father, are talking about her marriage. I want her to marry you, Shishupala. We all should join together to form a formidable alliance to resist the growing might of Krishna and Balrama. This alliance will make our friendship even stronger.
I am really honored with this proposal, Rukmi. I will be the happiest if I win Rukmini's hand in marriage.
The love for his son prevented Bhishmaka from voicing out his displeasure on Rukmini's decision. Meanwhile, Rukmini became disturbed and disheartened when she heard about Rukmini's plan, but she did not despair. She called her trusted messenger, the wise Brahmin Sunanda.
O great Brahmin, I bow down to you in respect. You might have heard about what is happening in the palace. I desperately need your help. Rukmi is planning to get me married to that villainous Shishupala. I will not stand it. Please leave for Dwaraka immediately and meet the Lord of my heart, Krishna. Tell him that I would rather die than marry someone else.
As you wish, O princess.
Sunanda arrived in Dwaraka. After enjoying Krishna's hospitality, Sunanda stated the purpose of his mission and read aloud Rukmini's message.
Rukmini has requested you to save her from the jackal Shishupala. She wants you to come to Kundinapura during the days of her marriage festivities. On one of those days, she will be taken to the Ambika temple for worship. She is requesting you to carry her off in the Rakshasa form of marriage. If you do not do so, she will give up her life. Now, Lord, it is all up to you.
Krishna laughed heartily, hearing the message of Sunanda.
I too am determined to marry Rukmini. I know very well that Rukmi is behind all this trouble. Tell the princess to keep faith in me. I shall not fail her.
Kundanapura was all decked up for the grand ceremony. Garlands of flowers filled the air with enchanting fragrance. Brahmins were chanting Vedic hymns. Shishupala entered the city with his army, his father Damagosha and his friends Shalva, Jarasandha, Gandhavakra, Vidaratha and Paundraga. They were all prepared for an encounter with Krishna if such a situation was to arise. Rukmini was extremely anxious as there was no sign of Krishna or Sunanda. Marriage day was getting closer. At this juncture, Sunanda arrived.
O princess, do not worry. Your prayers have been heard by the Lord himself. He has vowed to protect you. He is already in the city.
I am indebted to you, Sunanda. This is the happiest news you can bring me at this grave hour.
Rukmini bowed before Sunanda. The bridal procession came to the temple in a chariot decorated with gold and gems. Trumpets blared, drums sounded. Thousands of dancing girls were there at the chariot. After worshipping, Rukmini came out of the temple and walked very slowly, her eyes searching for Krishna. Krishna stepped forward and holding her by the waist, drew her into his own chariot. All this happened in front of bewildered Shishupala, Jarasandha and their armies. Krishna drew his chariot towards Dwarika. Recovering from the shock of the unexpected event, Shishupala, Rukmini and the others pursued Krishna and the Yadavas. A war followed between the Yadavas and the combined forces of Rukmini, Shishupala, Shalva, Jarasandha, Dandavakra, Vidaratha and Paundraga. The fearsome encounter ended with the valorous Yadavas defeating the combined forces of the enemy. But Rukmini vowed that he will not return to Kundinapura until he defeated Krishna and recaptured Rukmini.
Krishna, how dare you carry my sister off? If you are brave enough, fight me. I will kill you and free my sister.
In the fight that followed, Krishna defeated Rukmini and was about to kill him.
O Lord, please forgive him. He has insulted you and has committed sins that are unpardonable. But he is my brother. Please forgive him, my Lord.
Krishna did not kill Rukmini but disgraced him by shaving off a part of his head and chin. A disappointed Rukmini, having failed to fulfill his promise, never returned to Kundinapura but built a mansion in the outskirts and lived there.
Rukmini, you are welcome to Dwaraka. See, the whole kingdom is rejoicing on your arrival.
Krishna married Rukmini in the midst of great festivities.
So that was the story of Rukmini Haranam. Now let us take a look at the analogy.
Rukmini Swayamvaram is a story that signifies how aspirants can reach their goal by overcoming the obstacles in their path as a result of being committed and focused towards their goal. Rukmini is the aspirant in the story. She depicts the path of good, Shreyas, which seeks the joys of the self by resisting the pulls of pleasure. She is also the Jivatman and represents the quality of selflessness. Krishna depicts the self. He is the higher goal and represents the joys of the self. He is also the Paramatma. Rukmini's 5 brothers depict the attractions of the path of pleasure or prayers. They represent the obstacles that hinders the Jivatma from reaching the Paramatma. Rukmi is her eldest brother and he represents pleasure, selfishness and instant gratification. Rukmaratha represents material possessions. Land, money, vehicles, etc. are all material possessions. Rukmabahu depicts actions done to please the body senses. Temptations of the 5 body senses form the character of Rukmabahu. Rukmakesha is the representation of appearance. Placing more importance on one's appearance and ignoring other duties to improve our looks are the characteristics of Rukmakesha. Rukmamali depicts ornaments. the negative tendency to flaunt our wealth through ornaments is associated with Rukmamali. Sulanda is a trusted Brahmin who sends Rukmini's message to Krishna. He represents the powers of discrimination and dispassion, or Viveka and Vairagya. Sunanda's help was needed for Rukmini to reach out to Krishna. Likewise, the presence of Vairagya and Viveka is essential for Jivatma to reach the Paramatma. In brief, Rukmini Swayamvaram represents the Jivatma's longing for the Paramatma. Along with the powers of Viveka and Vairagya, the Jivatma leaves the path of pleasure or prayas and overcomes the obstacles of instant gratification. This way, the Jivatma is able to attain the Paramatma or the powers of the Self. An average performer who is aspiring for perfection will cross all obstacles with the help of discrimination and dispassion and will reach the final state of perfection. This way he becomes a star performer. The Bhagavad-Gita says that when you seek to attain the joys of the self with commitment, you reach the state of perfection.
The path of devotion, characterized by the 3 F's, focus, faith, fortitude, leads one to a state of inspiration of the self. This inspiration from self is devotion. Such people are not only inspired but also able to inspire. Let us now listen to the great wisdom of inspiration in all its nuances, of the techniques and the processes, as well as a result of being an inspired personality, Bhakta, through the words of Krishna in the form of Bhakti Yoga.
ऊर्ध्वं न संशया अदचित्तं समादातुं न शक्नोषि मयि स्थिरम् अभ्यासयोगेन ततो मामिच्छातुं धनं क्षया यासीत्यसमस्तोऽसि मत्कर्मा परमो भव मदर्थमपि कर्माणि कुर्वन् सिद्धिमवाप्स्यसि अदैतदप्यशक्तोऽसि कर्तुन्मद्योगमाश्रिता सर्वकर्मफलत्यागं तदकुर्यात्मवान् श्रेयो हि ज्ञानमभ्यासात् ज्ञानाद् विशिष्यते ज्ञानात् कर्मफलत्यागात् त्यागाचातिरनन्तरम् अद्वेष्टा सर्वभूतानां मैत्रः करुण एव च निर्ममो निरहङ्कारः समदुःखसुखक्षमी सन्तुष्टा सततं योगी यदात्मानुनिश्चया मय्यर्पितमनुद्यते यो मद्भक्तः प्रिया यस्मान्नो द्विजते लोको लोकानो द्विजते क्षया हर्षामर्षभयोद्वेगैर्मुक्तो यः स च मे प्रिया अनपेक्षशुचिर्दक्षा उदासीनो गतव्यता सर्वारम्भपरित्यागी यो मद्भक्तः स मे प्रिया यो न हृष्यति न द्वेष्टि न शोचति न काङ्क्षति शुभाशुभपरित्यागी भक्तिमान्यः स मे प्रिया समशत्रौ च मित्रे च तथात्मानापमानयो शीतोष्णसुखदुःखेषु समसङ्गविवर्जिता तुल्यनिन्दास्तु निर्ममो सन्तुष्टो येन केनचित् अनिकेतस्थिरमदे भक्तिमामे प्रियो नरा ये तु धन्यामृतमिदं यतोक्तं पर्युपासते श्रद्धधानामपरमा भक्तास्तीतीव मे प्रिया ॐ तत्सत् इति श्रीमद्भगवद्गीतासु उपनिषत्सु ब्रह्मविद्यायां योगशास्त्रे श्रीकृष्णार्जुनसंवादे भक्तियोगो नाम द्वादशोऽध्यायः ॐ तत्सत्
focus, faith, and fortitude results in inspiration. An inspired personality is ready to sacrifice ego, gaining knowledge and wisdom. Such people are liberated from the limitations of confined existence. Now we will see the story of the divine and the dwarf-sized Vamana, helping conquer the pride of Bali. This will be followed by the story of the birth of Krishna and his childhood heroics. Inspiration with selflessness results in freedom from limitations.
Now let us watch a depiction of Vamana Avataram, a story from our Puranas. Our group's name is Amuma Kada Sangam, which translates into Grandmother Stories Group. Yes, you might have guessed by now, we have a grandmother from Kerala telling us the story. Our Vivian, Niranjan's grandmother, Srimati Bhagirathi Tamburati, a retired professor who has been so sportive and kind enough in supporting us in our efforts. We thank her for her valuable time and efforts. Our group members are Shreya Ranjit, Aditya Girish, myself Shivpriya Saju, and of course, our Amuma. Now let us watch the story and the analogy. മഹതിയിലെ വരവേൽക്കാനാണ്. ശിവപ്രിയക്കറിയോ, കേരളം ഭരിച്ചിരുന്ന രാജാവായിരുന്നു മഹാബലി. വാമനൻ മഹാബലിയെ പാതാളത്തിലേക്ക് ചവിട്ടി താഴ്ത്തുകയായിരുന്നു. വാമനൻ അത് എന്തിനാ ചെയ്തത്? വാമനൻ ആരായിരുന്നു? അത് നമുക്ക് അമ്മുമ്മയോട് ചോദിക്കാം. ഭഗവാൻ വിഷ്ണുവിന് എത്ര അവതാരങ്ങളാണ് ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നത്?
ശ്രീ മഹാഭാഗവതത്തിൽ ഭഗവാൻ വിഷ്ണുവിൻ്റെ 10 അവതാരങ്ങളെക്കുറിച്ച് പറയുന്നുണ്ട്. അവയാണ് മത്സ്യം, കൂർമ്മം, വരാഹം, നരസിംഹം, വാമനൻ, പരശുരാമൻ, ശ്രീരാമൻ, ബലരാമൻ, ശ്രീകൃഷ്ണൻ, കൽക്കി. ഇതിൽ 5ാമത്തെ അവതാരമായ വാമനാവതാരത്തെക്കുറിച്ചാണ് നമ്മളിപ്പോൾ കഥ പറയാൻ പോകുന്നത്. അതായത് പണ്ട് വളരെ നാളുകൾക്ക് മുമ്പ് മഹാബലി നാട് വാണിരുന്ന കാലം. മഹാബലിയുടെ പേരന്ന് മഹാബലി എന്നായിരുന്നില്ല. എന്തായിരുന്നു അറിയാമോ? ബലി. പിന്നീടാണ് അദ്ദേഹം മഹാബലി ആയത്. അതായത് അദ്ദേഹത്തിൻ്റെ സൽപ്രവൃത്തികൾ കൊണ്ട് അദ്ദേഹം മഹാബലിയായി. നമുക്ക് ആ കഥയിലേക്ക് കിടക്കാം. മഹാബലി എന്താ പറഞ്ഞു തന്നെ? മഹാബലി നാട് വാണിരുന്ന കാലം അല്ലേ? അന്ന് ജനങ്ങൾ വളരെയധികം സന്തുഷ്ടരായിരുന്നു. എന്തുകൊണ്ടാണ്? ജനങ്ങൾക്ക് അദ്ദേഹത്തിൻ്റെ ഭരണം വളരെയധികം ഇഷ്ടപ്പെട്ടു. കാരണം അദ്ദേഹം നല്ലൊരു നീതിമാനായ രാജാവായിരുന്നു. അദ്ദേഹം ജനങ്ങളുടെ പ്രീതിക്ക് വേണ്ടി മാത്രമാണ് ഭരിച്ചത്. അങ്ങനെ നല്ലൊരു ഭരണം കാഴ്ചവെച്ചുകൊണ്ടിരുന്ന അദ്ദേഹത്തിൽ ക്രമേണ അഹങ്കാരം വന്നു തുടങ്ങി. ആ അഹങ്കാരം വന്നപ്പോൾ എന്താ അദ്ദേഹം ചെയ്തതെന്ന് അറിയാമല്ലോ. സ്വർഗം പാതാളവും കൂടെ അദ്ദേഹം ഭൂമിയുടെ ഉൾപ്പെടുത്തി. അങ്ങനെ 3 സ്ഥലവും അദ്ദേഹം 3 തലങ്ങൾ, അതായത് സ്വർഗം, പാതാളം, ഭൂമി, ഈ 3 സ്ഥലത്തും അദ്ദേഹം തൻ്റെ ഭരണം കൈയടക്കി വെച്ചുകൊണ്ടിരുന്നു. ഇതിൽ ദേവന്മാർ, അതായത് സ്വർഗത്തിലുള്ളവർക്ക് ഭയങ്കര സങ്കടമായിപ്പോയി. കാരണം അവരുടെ സ്വർഗരാജ്യം നഷ്ടപ്പെടുന്നു എന്നുള്ളത് ആർക്കായാലും തോന്നും, അല്ലേ? ദേവന്മാർ എന്ത് ചെയ്തു എന്നറിയാമല്ലോ. അതിഥിയോട്, അതായത് അതിഥി എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ ദേവന്മാരുടെ അമ്മയാണ്. അമ്മയ്ക്ക് ദേവന്മാരുടെ ദുഃഖത്തിൽ വളരെ വിഷമം ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നു. ശിവൻ അതിന് പരിഹാരം പറഞ്ഞു. എന്താ പരിഹാരം? 12 ദിവസം പയോവ്രതം അനുഷ്ഠിക്കണം. പയോവ്രതം അനുഷ്ഠിക്കുമ്പോൾ അതായത് പാല് മാത്രമേ ആഹാരമായിട്ട് കഴിക്കാവൂ. പാല് മാത്രം ആഹാരം കഴിച്ച് ആ വ്രതം അനുഷ്ഠിക്കണം. ഭഗവാൻ വിഷ്ണുവിനെ പ്രത്യക്ഷപ്പെടുത്തുക എന്നുള്ളതാണ് ഉദ്ദേശം. അങ്ങനെ 12 ദിവസം അതിഥി പയോവ്രതം അനുഷ്ഠിച്ചു. 12ാം ദിവസം, അതായത് 12 ദിവസം മഹാവിഷ്ണു പ്രത്യക്ഷപ്പെട്ടു. എന്താ അദ്ദേഹത്തിന് മനസ്സിലായി എന്താ വേണ്ടതെന്നുള്ളത്. അപ്പോൾ മഹാവിഷ്ണു പറഞ്ഞത് എന്താണ്? ഞാൻ നിന്റെ പുത്രനായിട്ട് ജനിക്കും, പക്ഷേ ഇത് രഹസ്യമായിട്ടിരിക്കണം. അങ്ങനെ അധികം ആരോടും പറയണ്ടെന്നർത്ഥം. എന്തിനാ പറയണേ? അപ്പം അങ്ങനെ രഹസ്യമായി വെക്കണം എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞു. ഏതായാലും വ്രതം അനുഷ്ഠിച്ച് 12ാം ദിവസം, അതായത് 12 നാളും തിരുവോണവുമായ നല്ല പുണ്യ സമയത്ത് മഹാവിഷ്ണു മകനായി ജനിച്ചു. ആ മഹാവിഷ്ണുവിൻ്റെ രൂപം എന്തായിരുന്നു? അതായത് ഒരു ബ്രാഹ്മണ കുമാരനായിരുന്നു. വാമനൻ എന്ന് പറയുമ്പോൾ തന്നെ പൊക്കമില്ലാത്തതെന്നാണ് അർത്ഥം. അദ്ദേഹത്തിൻ്റെ ഒരു കയ്യിൽ കമണ്ടലു, മറ്റേ കയ്യിൽ ഓലക്കുട, പിന്നെ അതുപോലെ തന്നെ പൂണൂല് ധരിച്ചിട്ടുണ്ട്, പിന്നെ അക്ഷമാല. ഇത്രയും ധരിച്ച് അദ്ദേഹം അതിഥിയുടെ മുമ്പിൽ പ്രത്യക്ഷപ്പെട്ടു. അപ്പോൾ അതിഥിക്ക് എന്താ വരം വേണ്ടതെന്ന് ഭഗവാൻ അറിയാം. അതുപോലെ ചെയ്യാം എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞു. അങ്ങനെ ആ വാമനൻ മഹാബലി അശ്വമേധയാഗം നടത്തുന്ന സ്ഥലത്തേക്ക് പോവുകയാണ്. നർമ്മദാ നദിയുടെ തീരത്ത് മഹാബലി ശുക്രാചാര്യരുടെ നേതൃത്വത്തിൽ ഈ വ്രതം അനുഷ്ഠിച്ചുകൊണ്ട് ഈ യാഗം, ഏതാണ് അശ്വമേധയാഗം നടത്തിക്കൊണ്ടിരിക്കുന്നു. അവിടേക്ക് ബലിയുടെ അടുത്തേക്ക് വാമനൻ ചെന്നു. ദൂരെ നിന്ന് തന്നെ വാമനൻ്റെ ആ തേജസ്സോടുകൂടിയ രൂപം കണ്ടപ്പോൾ മഹാബലിക്ക് അത്ഭുതം തോന്നി, ഭക്തി തോന്നി. അദ്ദേഹം എന്താണ് ചെയ്തതെന്ന് അറിയാമോ? വളരെ വിനയത്തോടുകൂടി ആ മുനികുമാരൻ്റെ അടുത്തേക്ക് ചെന്നു. ബ്രാഹ്മണകുമാരൻ്റെ അടുത്തേക്ക് കുറച്ച് കുട്ടിയോട് ചോദിക്കുകയാണ്, എന്താണ് അങ്ങേക്ക് വരം വേണ്ടത്, എന്താണ് അങ്ങേക്ക് വേണ്ടത് എന്ന് ചോദിച്ചു. എന്ത് വേണമെങ്കിലും ഞാൻ തരാം. കാരണം മഹാബലിക്ക് അത് പറയാം, എന്തെല്ലാം ഉണ്ട് അദ്ദേഹത്തിൻ്റെ കയ്യിൽ. അതുകൊണ്ട് അദ്ദേഹത്തിന് അത് എന്ത് വേണമെങ്കിലും കൊടുക്കാമെന്ന് വാക്ക് പറയാം. പക്ഷേ ആ കുമാരൻ എന്താ പറഞ്ഞത്? എനിക്ക് മറ്റൊന്നും വേണ്ട, എനിക്ക് 3 അടി ഭൂമി, അതായത് ഇരുന്ന് തപസ് ചെയ്യാം. നോക്കൂ, ആ കുട്ടിയുടെ എന്താണ് കുട്ടി ആവശ്യപ്പെട്ടത്? വെറും 3 അടി ഭൂമി മതി എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞു. അപ്പോൾ എന്താ മഹാബലിക്ക് ഒരു പ്രയാസവും തോന്നിയില്ല. അങ്ങ് തന്നെ അളന്നെടുത്തോളാൻ പറഞ്ഞു. ശരി. അപ്പോൾ എന്താ വാമനൻ ചെയ്തതെന്നറിയാമോ? ആ രൂപം തന്നെ അങ്ങ് മാറിപ്പോയി. വാമനൻ എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞ് നല്ല വലിയൊരു രൂപമായി മാറി. അങ്ങനെ 3 അടി ഭൂമി അളക്കാൻ തുടങ്ങി. പക്ഷേ 2 അടി ഭൂമി അളന്നപ്പോഴത്തേക്ക് തന്നെ ആകാശം, അതായത് സ്വർഗം, ഭൂമി, പാതാളം, ഇത് 3 കഴിഞ്ഞു. ഇനി എത്ര വേണം? ഇനി 1 അടിയും കൂടെ വേണം.
എന്നിട്ട് എന്ത് സംഭവിച്ചു അമ്മൂമ്മേ?
അപ്പൊ മഹാബലി ചോദിച്ചു. അപ്പം മഹാബലി ഇങ്ങനെ പറഞ്ഞില്ലേ, 2 അടി ഭൂമി അളന്നു, പക്ഷെ 3ാമത്തെ അടി എവിടെ അളക്കും എന്ന് ചോദിച്ചപ്പോൾ മഹാബലിക്ക് ഒട്ടും തന്നെ വിഷമം തോന്നിയില്ല. അത്ഭുതമായിരുന്നു തോന്നിയത്. ഈ 2 അടി ഭൂമി കൊണ്ട് ഇത്രയൊക്കെ അളന്നു കഴിഞ്ഞു, ഇത് ആരാ? അപ്പൊ ശുക്രാചാര്യ പറഞ്ഞു, ഇത് മറ്റാരുമല്ല, ഇത് ഭഗവാൻ വിഷ്ണുവാണ്. പക്ഷേ താൻ പറഞ്ഞതിൽ സത്യസന്ധനായിട്ടിരിക്കുന്ന അദ്ദേഹം അന്ന് സ്വയം എൻ്റെ തലയിൽ പാദങ്ങൾ വെച്ച് അത്രയും കൂടി അളന്നെടുത്തോളാൻ പറഞ്ഞു. അങ്ങനെ പറഞ്ഞ മഹാബലിയുടെ തലയിൽ മഹാവിഷ്ണു പാദങ്ങൾ വെച്ച് അദ്ദേഹത്തെ താഴേക്ക് താത്തി. പക്ഷേ നമ്മൾ വിചാരിക്കും അദ്ദേഹം പാതാളത്തിലാണ് പോയത്. നല്ല ഏറ്റവും ശ്രേഷ്ഠമായ, അതായത് സ്വർഗത്തേക്കാൾ ശ്രേഷ്ഠമായിട്ടുള്ള സുതലത്തിലേക്കാണ് മഹാബലിയെ അയച്ചത്. ആ സുതലത്തിൽ ചെന്ന മഹാബലിക്ക് ഇന്നും ഭഗവാൻ രക്ഷയോടുകൂടി, അതായത് അദ്ദേഹത്തിൻ്റെ രക്ഷ അവിടെ ഉണ്ട്. അദ്ദേഹത്തിന് വാമനന് വേണ്ടിയിട്ട് അദ്ദേഹം വേണ്ടത്ര രക്ഷ ചെയ്തുകൊണ്ട് ഇന്നും അവിടെ ഉണ്ടെന്നാണ് നമ്മൾ വിശ്വസിക്കുന്നത്. ഇനി ഒരു കാര്യം ചെയ്യാം, നമുക്ക് നമ്മൾ ഓണം ആഘോഷിക്കുമല്ലോ. ഓണം, തിരുവോണ ദിവസം, അത് ഏത് മാസത്തിലാണ് നിങ്ങൾക്കറിയാമോ? ചിങ്ങമാസത്തിൽ. ചിങ്ങമാസത്തിൽ തിരുവോണ ദിവസം. അതെന്തുകൊണ്ടാണ് തിരുവോണം? അതായത് തിരുവോണത്തിൻ്റെ അന്നാണ് നമ്മൾക്ക് ഏറ്റവും സന്തോഷമായിട്ട് മഹാബലി വരുന്ന ദിവസം എന്നാണ് നമ്മൾ വിശ്വസിക്കുന്നത്. അദ്ദേഹം തൻ്റെ ആളുകളെ കാണാൻ വരികയാണ്. അപ്പോൾ നമ്മൾ എന്താ ചെയ്യുന്നത്? 10 ദിവസം മുതൽ, അതായത് അത്തം, ചിത്തിര, ചോതി, വിശാഖം, അനിഴം, തൃക്കേട്ട, മൂലം, പൂരാടം, ഉത്രാടം, തിരുവോണം, ഈ 10 ദിവസം നമ്മൾ മഹാബലിയെ സ്വീകരിക്കാനായിട്ട് എല്ലാം ഒരുക്കുന്നു. ഈ എല്ലാം ഒരുക്കുന്നു എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ എന്താണ്? വീടും പരിസരങ്ങളും ഒക്കെ നല്ല ശുചിയാക്കി വയ്ക്കും. എന്നിട്ട് എന്നും പൂക്കളം ഇടും. നമ്മൾ അവിടുന്ന് ഇവിടുന്ന് ഒക്കെ ഇഷ്ടംപോലെ പൂക്കൾ പറിച്ചുകൊണ്ട് വന്ന് മഹാബലിയെ സ്വീകരിക്കാൻ പൂക്കളം ഇടും. ഇതെല്ലാം കഴിഞ്ഞ് ഈ 10 ദിവസം നമ്മൾ എന്ത് ചെയ്യുന്നു? തിരുവോണ ദിവസം ആകുമ്പോൾ നമ്മൾ കുറേ കൂടി സന്തോഷമാണ്. എന്താണ്? അന്നാണ് മഹാബലി വരുന്നത്. ആ മഹാബലിയെ നമുക്ക് എതിരേൽക്കണ്ടേ? അതിനുവേണ്ടി നമ്മൾ വീണ്ടും അന്നും പൂക്കളം ഒരുക്കി മഹാബലിയെ സ്വീകരിക്കാൻ തയ്യാറാകുന്നു. ഈ പൂക്കളം മാത്രമല്ല, അന്ന് നമ്മളൊരു ഗംഭീര സദ്യ ഉണ്ടാക്കും. ആ സദ്യയിൽ ഒരുവിധം എല്ലാ വിഭവങ്ങളും കാണും. അന്ന് ഉച്ചയ്ക്ക് നമ്മൾ കുടുംബാംഗങ്ങൾ എല്ലാവരും ചേർന്ന് ആ സദ്യക്ക് പങ്കെടുക്കുന്നു. എല്ലാവരും സന്തോഷത്തോടു കൂടി ഒന്നിച്ചിരുന്ന് ഭക്ഷണം കഴിക്കുന്നു. ഇത്രയും ആനന്ദം ഏത് ദിവസമാണ് നമുക്കുള്ളത്? വാസ്തവം പറഞ്ഞാൽ മഹാബലിയെ പോലെ ഇത്രയും ശ്രേഷ്ഠനായിട്ടുള്ള ഒരു ചക്രവർത്തി, അപ്പം ഇത് രസമൊന്നുമല്ല. അദ്ദേഹം അസുര ചക്രവർത്തിയായിരുന്നു. പക്ഷെ അസുര ചക്രവർത്തി ആയിരുന്നെങ്കിലും അദ്ദേഹം വളരെ നല്ല മനുഷ്യനായിരുന്നു, വളരെ നല്ലൊരു രാജാവായിരുന്നു. അതുകൊണ്ട് നമ്മൾ അദ്ദേഹത്തെ വളരെ സന്തോഷത്തോടുകൂടി എല്ലാ വർഷവും ചിങ്ങമാസത്തിൽ സ്വീകരിക്കുന്നുണ്ട്. ഇതുപോലെ പൂക്കളമൊക്കെ ഒരുക്കി സദ്യ ഒരുക്കി എത്ര സന്തോഷമാണ് നമ്മുടെ അന്ന്. അതാണ് നമ്മുടെ തിരുവോണ ദിവസം. ഇതാണ് നമുക്ക് വാമനാവതാരത്തെ അനുബന്ധിച്ചുള്ള കഥ എല്ലാവർക്കും ഇഷ്ടപ്പെട്ടില്ലേ? നല്ല കഥയല്ലേ? നമുക്ക് ഇതുപോലുള്ള കഥകൾ ധാരാളം കേൾക്കണം.
Let us now see the analogy of the story Vamana Avatar. Kashyapa, the father of Devas and Asuras, represents the self, the enlivening power of beings. Diti is the mother of Asuras, who represents that which divides or splits. We are always limited by our thoughts and actions, distracted by selfishness. Aditi is the mother of Devas, representing that which integrates or unifies. A focused mind integrates thoughts and actions. King Bali is the son of Diti, representing ego and pride. Vamana is the incarnation of Mahavishnu, who was born as the son of Aditi. He represents the joys of the inner self. Indra, king of Devas, represents our mind, which is the ruler of our body and senses, and our productive capabilities. Ego is the ruler of our intentions. Mind easily succumbs to ego. Under the control of ego, we forget the self. When our infinite nature is understood and we seek boundless joys of the self, the benefits are boundless. Vamana Avatar signifies the ultimate sacrifice or Mahabali of the body, mind, and intellect to eliminate ego. Even a small attempt to satisfy the joys of the inner self will help us sequentially conquer limitations of the physical body, limitations of the mind, and limitations of the intellect, leading to the attainment of limitless joys of the self. Thus, the sacrificing of ego is the ultimate sacrifice that we can make. From within such a personality will shine forth the divine glories of creative, productive, and enriching powers, ushering in grandeur, quietude, and glory. Sacrificing ego integrates and unites our mind and intellect with the higher goals of life. This integration helps in enhancing and cultivating capabilities. This is exemplified in the central verse of Bhagavad-Gita 9.22, where Sri Krishna states, "When you are motivated by the joys of the self, without any distracting thoughts, the power of inner self will carry you through, maintaining and enhancing your existing capabilities, as well as help cultivating new ones."
Pavakutta Sangam presents The Birth of Krishna and Analogies. This group consists of Neha, Gayatri, Amod, Sainath, and myself, Ved Narayan. Mostly reusing the materials found at home, such as color paper and paper cups, we were able to produce a puppet show for all of you to cherish the deep understanding it introduces. We sincerely hope to spread the message through an enjoyable presentation.
There existed a time when Goddess Earth was unable to bear the sins and cruelty committed by evil kings and rulers. Those who dissented would not see the light of day. Goddess Earth, who was being weighed down by the sins and cruelty, requested Lord Brahma for help. Along with the other lords, Brahma went to Vaikunta to pray to Lord Vishnu to take a form on earth to free Goddess Earth of this burden. Having heard of the earnest prayers of his beloved devotees, he promised to take a form on earth and annihilate all evil soon itself. Long ago, the city of Madra was ruled by a king called Ugrasena. He had a son named Kamsa and a daughter named Devaki. Kamsa was an arrogant tyrant, and everyone in Madra feared his cruel and merciless behavior. Even though he was cruel, he loved his sister Devaki dearly. A noble man named Vasdev with excellent qualities was selected for marrying Devaki. The marriage of Devaki and Vasdev was a grand event. After the wedding, Kamsa declared,
"I shall drive the chariot myself and escort my sister to Vasudev's abode."
The whole city of Madra was celebrating the marriage of Devaki and Vasdev. As Kamsa took the reins of the horse in his hand and procession moved, dark stormy clouds masked the bright blue skies of Madra. A heavenly voice proclaimed,
Beware! The very sister you love so much is going to give birth to a son who will destroy you. The eighth son born to Devaki will kill you.
Upon hearing this, Kamsa faced the newlywed couple with rage, flooding his eyes. Devaki and Vasdev cowered under his frightful gaze. He swiftly drew forth his sword to sever his sister's head. Devaki cried in fear. Vasdev pleaded,
Kamsa, how can you be so cruel? Are you going to kill your sister on the day of her marriage?
Did you not hear what was said? I must kill her to protect my life.
Kamsa, do you wish to suffer the disgrace of killing a woman? I shall hand over every child we have. Please, do not kill Devaki.
You shall not be set free. You will be imprisoned in the cells of Mathura.
The day came when Devaki and Vasudev had their first child. On hearing this news, Kamsa rushed to the prison and caught hold of Devaki and Vasudev's baby. He caught the legs of the baby and dashed it on the ground, killing it in an instant. The other 5 children also met the same fate. In due course of time, Devaki was pregnant the 7th time. Miraculously, the 7th child was carried to Rohini, another wife of Vasudev. The child came to be known as Balram. Constellation Rohini was rising in the heavens, and it was the 8th day in the month of Shravan. A terrible storm was in the city with heavy rain pouring. The sky was covered with thick black clouds. Devaki was pregnant, the 8th child. Suddenly, Lord Vishnu appeared before them.
O Mother, Father, your days of sorrow are now over. Too long has the earth borne the burden of the wicked deeds of the impious. I have manifested myself for their destruction. Father, take me now to the house of your good friend Nanda in Gokula. His wife Yashoda has just given birth to a baby girl. Exchange me for that daughter and place me by Yashoda's side. Bring the little girl here into the prison. Nothing shall bar your way. You and Mother Devaki will attain my being by meditating upon me as your son as well as your supreme Brahman.
At the stroke of midnight, a little dark baby boy was born, whose complexion was like that of a rain-bearing cloud. Their eyes lit with love as they gazed upon the enchanting dark complexion of the Lord.
What a miracle, Devaki! Look, the chains that bound me have fallen off. Give the child. I shall take him to our friend Nanda in Gokula.
The doors of the prison cell opened. He found all soldiers in deep slumber. Carefully holding the basket in which Krishna laid his head, he walked down the streets of Mathura towards Gokul. As Vasudev arrived in the river bank of Yamuna, it began to rain. The gushing water began to swirl and rage. Suddenly the water parted and a ford appeared between them. The celestial Adishesha, snake of Mahavishnu, reclined on spreading its hood over the child, guarding them as an umbrella for the divine being. In Gokul, Nandagopal's wife Yashoda had just given birth to a baby girl. On reaching Nandagopal's house, Yashoda placed Krishna in the baby girl's crib and picked up the baby girl gently in his arms. As soon as Vasudev returned, the doors of the prison closed, and the guards woke up being greeted by the cries of a baby. Kamsa was informed about the child's birth right away. He grabbed the baby to kill her like all others. Please have mercy. How can a baby girl harm a mighty warrior like you? Kamsa paid no heed to her pleas. As he took the baby by her legs, she slipped out of his hand and rose up in the air. She turned into the mighty goddess Durga. O wicked Kamsa, you've just displayed your valor by trying to kill an innocent baby. Your destroyer has born to Devaki at midnight and now is safe in Gokul. When the time comes, he will come in search of you and punish you for all the evil that you've committed. Saying so, Goddess Durga disappeared. Ever since that day, he lived a life filled with fear. Meanwhile, In Gokul, the birth of a beautiful baby boy of Nandagopal and Yashoda was being celebrated by one and all.
Let us now explore the analogies for the birth of Krishna. The birth of Krishna in prison depicts the self being imprisoned at birth by the BMI, the body, mind, and intellect. When Vasudeva carries Lord Krishna out of prison, it depicts the goodness bringing out the joys of the self. Devaki portrays the divine nature, and Vasudeva shows goodness. Together, they help awaken the joys of the self. The rain and flood that obstructs your path are like the challenges you will face while traveling the path of good. The shelter provided by Vasaki is the multifaceted goodness that will protect your path. As Vasudeva reaches Gokula and ensures Krishna's safety, the joys of the self, protected by goodness of mind, will help us to overcome our limitations and challenges in life. Krishna started serving his life's purpose of restoring the balance between good and evil right from the day he was born. The asuras killed by Krishna represent the demonic qualities or obstacles preventing a person from attaining the path of good. Putana represents the attractions of pseudo friends and pseudo well wishers. They are the poison in the form of sweet. Trinavarta signifies a whirlwind that takes you apart, such as false pride. Shakatasura is a cartload of burden that are bad habits, lethargy, and vanity. Nalakuvera and Manigriva represent the twin dangers, pride and pelf. Vatsasura is the childish mentality in you, the mischievous greediness resulting in wickedness. Bakasura is the cunning duplicity, deceptiveness, and the false appearance and behavior. Agasura accounts for the deceptiveness, cruelty, and violence. Dhenukasura signifies the delusion, ignorance, and false knowledge. Indragarva is the pride of selfishness, the feeling that I am supreme. Kalya signifies the negative tendencies such as fear, anger, pride, jealousy, and arrogance. In conclusion, just like how Lord Krishna was able to overcome and destroy these obstacles, we need to find different ways in which we can overcome them in our daily lives. He who is free from selfishness, who has subdued his mind and senses, from whom selfish desires have fled, through the process of renouncing distractions, attains the supreme state of perfection, of freedom from limitations.
Focus, faith, fortitude leads to inspiration. Inspiration combined with selflessness yields total expansion. This is the path to perfection. Such people are true reflections of the Purushottama. Let us now reflect on this message as we chant chapter 15, Purushottama Yoga.
अथ पञ्चदशोऽध्यायः पुरुषोत्तमयोगः श्रीभगवानुवाच ऊर्ध्वमूलं मदशाखम् अश्वत्थं प्राहुरव्ययम् छन्दांसि यस्य पर्णानि यस्तं वेद स वेदवित्
अधश्चोर्ध्वं प्रसृतस्तस्य शाखा पुनः प्रवृद्धा विषयप्रवाला अधश्च मूल्याननुसन्दधानि कर्मानुबन्धीनि मनुष्यलोके न रूपमस्येह ततोपलभ्यते नान्तो न चादिर्न च सम्प्रतिष्ठा अश्वत्थमेनं सुविरूढमूलम् असङ्गशस्त्रेण दृढेन चित्वा तदपदं तत्परिमादितव्यम् यस्मिन् गता न निवर्तन्ते भूयः तमेव चाद्यं पुरुषं प्रपत्ते यतः प्रवृत्ति प्रसदा पुराणी
निर्माणमोहाजितसङ्गदोषा अध्यात्मनित्या विनिवृत्तकामा वन्दे विमुक्ता सुखदुःखसत्मे गच्छन्यमूढा पदव्ययं तत् न तद्भासयते सूर्यो न शशाङ्को न पावकः यद्गत्वा न निवर्तन्ते तद्धाम परमं मम
ममैवांशो जीवलोके जीवभूतः सनातना मनःषष्ठानीन्द्रियाणि प्रकृतिस्थानि कर्षति
शरीरं यदवाप्नोति यच्चाप्युत्क्रामतीश्वर गृहीत्वैतानि संयाति वायुर्गन्धानि वाशयात्
श्रोत्रं चक्षुस्पर्शनं च रसनं घ्राणमेव च अधिष्ठाय मनश्चायं विषयानुपसेवते
उत्क्रामन्दं स्थितं वापि भुञ्जानं वा गुणान्विदं विमूढानानुपश्यन्ति पश्यन्ति ज्ञानचक्षुषः
यतन्तो योगिनश्चैनं पश्यन्त्यात्मन्यवस्थितं यतन्तो प्रकृतात्मानो नैनं पश्यन्त्यचेतसः
यतादित्यगतं तेजो जगद्भासयतेऽखिलम् यच्चन्द्रमसि यच्चाग्नौ तत्तेजो विद्धि मामकम्
मामाविश्य च भूतानि धारयाम्यहमोजसा पुष्णामि चौषधी सर्वा सोमो भूत्वरसात्मका अहं वैश्वानरो भूत्वा प्राणिनां देहमाश्रिता प्राणापानसमायुक्ता तजाम्यन्नं चतुर्विधम् सर्वस्य चाहं हृदि सन्निविष्टो मतस्मृतिर्ज्ञानमपोहनं च वेदैश्च सर्वैरहमेव वेद्यो वेदान्तकृद्वेदविदेव चाहम् द्वाविमौ पुरुषौ लोके क्षरश्चाक्षर एव च क्षरः सर्वाणि भूतानि कूटस्थोऽक्षर उच्यते
उत्तमपुरुषस्त्वन्या परमात्मेत्युदाहृदा यो लोकत्रयमाविश्य बिभर्तव्यय ईश्वर
यस्माक्षरमतीतोऽहम् अक्षरादपि चोत्तमा अतोऽस्मि लोके वेदे च प्रतितः पुरुषोत्तमा यो मामेवमसम्मूढो जानाति पुरुषोत्तमं स सर्वेत्पचिति मां सर्वभावेन भारत इति गुह्यतमं शास्त्रम् इदमुक्तं मया नघ एतद्बुद्ध्वा बुद्धिमान् स्यात् कृतकृत्यश्च भारत
ॐ तत्सत् इति श्रीमद्भगवद्गीतासु उपनिषत्सु ब्रह्मविद्यायां योगशास्त्रे श्रीकृष्णार्जुनसंवादे पुरुषोत्तमयोगो नाम पञ्चदशोऽध्यायः। हरि ओं तत्सत्।
The path to perfection and the release from limitations, moksha, triggered by the threefold discipline of focus, faith, fortitude, is the path of karma, bhakti, jnana that the Bhagavad-Gita enumerates through the 18 chapters. This leads to inspired life and living. Selflessness should be the unifying thread that strings these attitudes like the thread that string the necklace, Sutre Manigana Iva. We have come a full circle. We started with the universal truth that the Brahman is rooted in sacrifices, and the Bhagavad-Gita taught us that self is rooted in selflessness. Before we end, we have a very important segment that will wrap up this show. I would like to present before you 10 of our super seniors who have passed through the Vigyan Vikas curriculum of the Pattern Institute, which is a weekly Friday class that we have been running from the year 2003. Many have graduated from this training, but here we present a snapshot of 10 of these people. Please listen to the short snippets of wisdom from among those who have been certified as the wise, those possessed with the wisdom of self-excellence. Over to the senior Vivians.
Namaste, my name is Aarti. Growing up, Bhagavad-Gita was introduced into my life very differently, as I was always advised to look beyond the literal meaning of the verses and to apply my understandings to my day-to-day activities. There are several messages and philosophies clasped within the 18 chapters of Bhagavad-Gita, but one that has significantly resonated within me is that all of us have the same potential, and it is our actions that set us apart. This has been my driving force in all spheres of life, be it with regards to my work as a student, my duties as a daughter, or even as an individual contributing to society. It has proved to me time and again that nothing is unattainable if you're willing to put in the effort as well as the time into it. But at the same time, it has helped me reflect and understand my actions as well as the consequences that come with it.
Namaste. Bhagavad Gita has affected my life in many different ways, directly or indirectly. One of the big things that I have learned is to not stress out about the results of my actions. Instead, focus on what needs to be done and then doing it well. Especially at work, I found this to be extremely useful during tough projects or tight deadlines. It's just easier to stay calm if I'm focused on the task at hand instead of the outcomes, because I've learned that you can only control your own actions and tasks, while the results might actually depend on so many different variables that are completely out of your control. Another thing that I have learned is that change happens all the time in life. Especially this year. It was a perfect example given the COVID pandemic and the changes that it brought. This can be a trigger for anxiety sometimes, especially if you're someone who prefers a routine, like me. However, what helps me deal with these changes, both in my professional life as well as personal life, is to remind myself that changes are a part of life and that I just need to figure out ways to adapt to the new situation and then find opportunities or possibilities within those changes.
Confidence that I can do the things that I want to do and need to do. Tools to cultivate the necessary intelligence to differentiate between the two came from the Gita. To always keep improving using my innate infinitude and to always constantly keep thinking about things that I do on a regular basis. No matter how trivial it seems, understand that there is always room for improvement and increase in efficiency. This groundbreaking thought was instilled deep into my psyche by the Gita and the lessons of the Bhagavad-Gita. In the larger picture, one may seem like an indifferent speck, but you must always understand that consistent actions, no matter how small they may seem, will always compound into huge positive returns. That's it.
Hi, I'm certain that Sadesh Uncle's constant drilling of concepts of self and self-realization from my very young age has taught me to treat the self and myself as separate entities, and that they are very different definitions of happiness. I now find it easier to acknowledge that materialistic pleasures and instant gratifications are just deceptive fluff, at least most of the time. Understanding that myself is ultimately only the things that I do and I know helps me streamline my actions into doing more productive things. I do occasionally find myself comparing my accomplishments with others and pulling myself into a downward spiral. But just reminding myself that ultimately I should be my only competition helps me get going again.
Strive to achieve your goals not for the final result, but for the intrinsic satisfaction that you would derive from the simple act of trying to do them with utmost perfection. For me, this is the single most important piece of advice I have ever gathered from the Bhagavad-Gita. Initially, it seemed exceedingly difficult for me because, let's face it, we live in a competitive world and it is near impossible not to be worried about results. But being a college student, I have realized the fruits of performing those tasks with a more self-disciplined and a process-oriented attitude. When we pay close attention to the steps that are involved in achieving our goals and we invest ourselves in doing them diligently, perfection is bound to follow. This is one among the joys of the self that I cannot express in words, but I leave it to you guys to discover yourselves.
Hello everyone, my name is Rahul. One thing that I've learned from the Bhagavad-Gita that has helped me a lot in my life is Prasada Bhava, to work to one's fullest potential and to accept the result no matter how favorable it may be. Whether it be a difficult exam or an assignment, I've learned to just keep a calm mind about it and just work. Now it may end in failure or an unimaginable success, but the key is to keep a neutral mind see the positives and the negatives, and to accept that the result is not something that one should really be worried about.
Hi everybody. The teachings of Bhagavad-Gita have helped me in my life in various ways, be it my studies, my work. It has always helped me. The one thing that I feel helped me the most is to not look at the fruits of an action. Instead, to concentrate on doing the action properly. So, when I'm doing something, I concentrate on that work. Like if it is studies, I concentrate on learning properly, not thinking that I should get 90 in 100. No. Learn the thing so that you understand what it is, so that you can apply it. That way, that will help you in your real life applications or in your job, and also you will get the results of the action automatically. So that way, when you do your work with sincerity, the results will come on its own. So concentrate on the work that you do, not on the results. Thank you.
Hello, this is Ritu. Tyagabhava is an interesting concept that I learned from Bhagavad-Gita. Sacrifice is always seen as a word of loss or pain in the general literature. However, Bhagavad-Gita taught me that it was otherwise. In fact, we completely forget that we are constantly sacrificing on every actions we perform. For instance, I wake up on time to get to work by sacrificing a good long nap under my blanket. I have a balanced diet by sacrificing 3 meals of cheesy pizzas. Or I work to meet job requirements and deadlines by sacrificing the time for Instagram surfing. These sacrifices don't seem to create any loss to me. Instead, this has made me proactively ready to face any challenges that many may not have. Thus, I can now explain with gratitude that sacrifice is a beautiful term that makes one grow beyond the imaginary boundary created by one's own negative tendencies. With the energy of self residing within me, I shall make many more sacrifices for the goodness yet to be explored. Thank you.
Namaste. My practical experiences oriented with the teachings of Bhagavad Gita by attending Vijnan Vikas classes is concerned with chapter 15, exclusively known as Sri Purushottama Yoga. This chapter has helped me understand that the cardinal 4 steps utilized to achieve our goals, which is focus, self-effort, prioritization, and selflessness, is associated with comprehending the core perception of the self, that which is devoid of any characteristics, and through this process of realization, keep away from any worldly desires that are rooted to the body, mind, and intellect, the BMI. I have realized that the capabilities of my infinite self are endless and could not be influenced by distractions or materialistic desires, since the work that I engage in is done to achieve the joys of the self. My duties as a student and as a daughter, be it studying, sharing household chores, prioritizing family activities, etc., were effective, as I was responsible for my work, and the joy of doing it well resulted in positive outcomes. Therefore, I was able to score well in my university exams, provided with various opportunities because of my love and dedication for the subject, one of the many opportunities being chosen to engage in a research study with 50% financial aid from my university. Additionally, the joy of completing the work in hand with focus and self-effort was one of the most beneficial aspects of my tedious university routine, and I began to feel less intimidated when I was provided with projects in the future because of my awareness and of finding joy in doing work in an organized manner, with creativity and to the best of my capabilities, as well as display my passion for writing, which I continue to do during the period of quarantine. Thank you.
Namaste.
In college, I tried to effectively manage the time that I spent on preparing for exams as well as working on projects and doing other activities. And in work, I'm trying to make effective use of my time by planning out a course of action and allotting time for different activities. This becomes especially important when I'm in between projects and I need to handle concluding a project while doing research and testing for the next project. I also had a lot of team-oriented projects in college where we would need to divide the project into subtasks that would be handled by different members of the team. Most often, I would group myself with people that I know I can rely on to cooperate and complete the tasks. They knew that they could rely on me in the same regard. This reliability came over time and as a result of prior experiences, where I would take ownership over my tasks and follow through on completing them. These are examples of bhavas like Samarpana Bhava or dedication, Tyaga Bhava or sacrifice, and Yajna Bhava or cooperation that I learned through the Bhagavad-Gita. These bhavas or attitudes to work are dealt with in the Karma Yoga.